And now, welcome to the award-winning program, Voices of Experience, with your hosts, Chuck Gallagher and Meredith Oliver. And now, here's Chuck.
Hi, this is Chuck Gallagher with Voices of Experience. My guest is future president of NSA, Anna Liotta. Anna, it's great to have you here as a guest.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here.
Okay, so I want to do this. We could talk about your upcoming presidency, and perhaps we need to include part of that, but I'm interested in your topic.
Okay.
Okay? Because you talk about generational differences.
Yes.
And I'm starting more and more to see that in really weird ways. And it's kind of freaking me out. Now, part of it is, okay, I'm learning, yes, but part of it is, it's a mind shift that I guess we probably need to look at and think about.
Yes, it is.
So perhaps one of the first questions would be, with, I guess, 3 active generations in the workforce, maybe there's 4.
Yeah, 4 and a little bit of a 5th.
Okay, talk to us about what you see as primary differences in each of those generations.
So the first primary differences is what each generation expects the workplace to be about.
Okay.
For our traditionalists and even our boomers, work was called work for a reason. So work was something that you went to and you did. For our Gen Xers and now to our millennials, work is something that you could do from wherever you are. So when we are working with our clients and they have employees that they want to stay with them for a long time, they wanted to attract the top talent and the hottest talent, and they wanted to retain them, they have to think about what are their expectations in the workplace that weren't perhaps the way they saw it when they entered the workplace. I call that generational codes. So
okay,
the formative experiences that you have between the ages of 8 to 18 that create imprints that you reference for the rest of your life. And when we look at how people engage in the workplace, there is what baby boomers dreamed of, like work-life balance, and Gen Xers desired, but millennials will demand, and the Gobals, that's my name for the generation coming right after the millennials. The whole placeholder name is Gen Z, but the name that's arising for them is the Gobals, because they see themselves as global citizens from the very beginning. And the Gobals will absolutely just expect, not even know that they need to demand, balance in the workplace.
There was an article not long ago that IBM had for a while said, okay, yeah, you can work from home and we're trying to make that work. And then they came back and said, not so much. You need to come back to the workplace. What happened that's causing a big global giant like IBM to say, no, we're going to go back more to the boomer model than I'm going to call it the millennial model?
Yes, it's such an interesting thing because there is line of sight management, which is what the boomers grew up in, where if I can't see you, I don't know that you're working.
Right.
And the Gen Xers had to acclimate too, because there was 80 million boomers and, frankly, only 44 million Gen Xers. They couldn't quite compete on numbers. So there was an acquiescing, but then technology came in as they entered the workplace and started to democratize the workplace. But what we're seeing now is that millennials work from anywhere, but they do want community. And so there's this tension. How do you create a fabric that weaves between everyone, that creates that cultural community? And so sometimes organizations struggle with, they think that community is when we're face to face.
I see.
They think that that's how they have to do it, is to force it by bringing them back in. The other thing that organizations struggle with is that they are not great at knowing how to deliver, here's what I need, by when I need it, and how I'm going to measure you on it. So that metric is where they really struggle, and they say, okay, since I don't know how to tell you how I'm going to measure you, I need you to come back here physically so I can go back to line of sight management, which is what that generational code I referenced.
Right.
Without knowing it, sometimes we go back to that visceral understanding of the way things work, and we go, okay, I'm going to pull it back. But now what we're going to see is with the Gobals entering in, and they're just at their beginning entering in, and the second wave of millennials, they do not need to come to the physical space to be productive. And as leaders and managers, if we don't get better about delivering to them the information of what I need by when I need it, and here's the tools to get there, they won't want to stay with us very long. They'll leave us within about 3, 6, 9 months, not 3, 6, 9 years. And that's the expense to organizations, is to not be able to retain that talent they spent so much money to recruit, but cannot engage and cannot fulfill their hearts and minds and spirits. and they go somewhere else.
When we take it to the speaker world, the question becomes, how do we as content deliverers become relevant when people appear to be less engaged in that line of sight receiving or delivery and more engaged in the collective information that's disseminated?
It's so important as speakers that we model what we want our audiences to be able to take back into their workplace. So engagement. When we are speaking and delivering, how do we engage the audience and get them to crowdsource the information back to us such that we can implement it rather than just stand and deliver content? Because particularly our millennials and our globals too, in school, they changed the way they learned. They had polling in school. They had interactions. They did reverse learning where they gave them the lecture that they could watch online, and then they started coming into the classroom to ask the Q&A. So how do we as speakers demonstrate that reverse learning? How do we, before the event ever happens, work with the meeting planner to stimulate the conversation, to stimulate the buzz, to stimulate the dialogue, such that by the time they come to us, instead of us being the sage from the stage delivering the information, we are now co-creating it with them. Now with our clients, how do we make sure when they take it back to the workplace, they have a better facility in co-creating such that they have true engagement? Because we know the most expensive team member is a disengaged team member whose hearts and minds are not there.
Right.
They're just filling a seat. They're
Right.
not going to stay there forever. They're just phoning it in. And for our younger generations, they don't expect to retire with the company they start with. And so this is not their final destination, and they are not in any way worried that this is the only place that they can go to get a job. They've got options. At their generational DNA code level, I've got options.
Help the folks that are listening on VOE, because you know you have a large constituency.
Yes.
You have people who are new members, not necessarily new speakers, but new members in NSA.
Yes.
You have some of us who are, we'll call mid-level career, and you have some folks who are in the Hall of Fame, been around a long time, have incredible businesses. What do we need to know in terms of our language to effectively communicate amongst four-ish generations?
I think the first thing that we need to know is that sometimes we make jokes that we think are funny because we're mocking a group, and that is not tolerated across the generations in the same way. So we cannot make fun of, say, the millennials. People love to mock the millennials, and they go, ha, ha, ha. That completely turns off 45% of the workplace. Because right now, millennials are 45% of the workplace, and that's only going to grow because there was 76 million born in the US and 82 million with the international workforce. So you cannot mock a generation and think that they are going to, just laugh along with you.
Right.
The second thing is we have to really audit our language, like the pronouns that we use, particularly our millennials and our globals. They want to be asked for the pronoun that they would like to use to reference themselves. So we have to look at how does our language leak our own generational code as we seek to be more expansive before. Then the language we use around when we're referring to partners, to couples, to marital spouses. We actually have to look at, are there ways that we can include all of those things? It's a very small, respectful way of engaging and including the audience. But then we also have to look at our metaphors and our stories, because we will use a story that we resonate with us because it was part of our formative experiences. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
For a long time, I would talk about the sound that Charlie Brown, in the comic series Charlie Brown, the sound that the adults in Charlie Brown's world made. Do you remember that sound?
Wah,
Wah, wah, wah, wah, wah, wah, right?
Absolutely.
Exactly. And when
it was a great sound.
It was a great sound. And when my audiences were primarily baby boomers and Gen Xers and traditionalists, they all grew up hearing the Charlie Brown series.
Sure.
But then I was in front of a mostly millennial audience, and I said, the sound that Charlie Brown's? And they all just sat there and looked at me, because they did not have the same reference point. And that was a wake-up call to even me to say, okay, I need to update that. So it doesn't mean I can't ever use that again, but I better have a counterpoint, metaphor or story or that kind of thing that also includes that. So we have to do an audit of our stories, of our visuals, of our music to make sure it has both and.
That's interesting that you say that, because I remember standing in front of a group and I made a mistake and I said, okay, wait a minute, let me rewind the tape. And, you know, some people knew what I was talking about because they actually remember cassette tape or earlier, and others were like, it had no connection whatsoever.
Exactly. And it's not that you can't ever say those things, you just have to make sure you say another version of it too.
Absolutely. If you were going to say to, you know, via the audio tracks to speakers, okay, you need to understand the code of the person to whom you are selling.
That's right.
Okay, because we are actively marketing our intellectual property.
That's right.
What's a resource or two that we might look at to really delve deep and understand what that code is? Because you weren't raised as a baby boomer, and I wasn't raised as a millennial, so we don't know the codes unless we seek to learn those codes.
Two things. One, there is a lovely plethora of books now around generational dynamics. Of course, mine is one of them.
And the name of your book?
It's Unlocking Generational Codes. And one of the things about my book is it takes a full generational approach. So it's all 6 generations in the workplace. Generations are only powerful in context and contrast to each other. If you myopically focus on any one, you'll get frustrated because then you're trying to do everything for them. But it's only in context and contrast what you would have done for you or for someone of your generation. So that's the first thing. Is I recommend when people begin to engage around generational codes and dynamics that they look at across the generations, not just deep into one.
Okay.
The second thing that I would say is start watching what is coming up in the news. If you just went in and put in, you know, millennials or Gen Z or not so much baby boomers because there's a ton on, you're going to start seeing the articles and the dialogue that's happening around it, and you're going to start seeing what people are frustrated by. That's gold. What is it that people are complaining about? That becomes the way that you can be a relevant and resonant resource to your audiences, to your meeting planners, and to your decision makers.
You are our upcoming president, 2019-2020.
That's right.
So give us a flavor of what you see happening within the organization as we move in toward 2020.
One of the exciting things is we have a new CEO, Mary Lou Peck. And in the partnership with her, we have an opportunity to expand who we serve and elevate how we serve our experienced speaker. And so one of the things that I see is that we will increase our reach to people that are not currently in our community. We will actually expand our membership because we will begin to reach outside of the people that have consistently heard about us, and we will be bringing in other working speakers who are in corporate America, other working speakers who are traveling very actively but have not yet heard about us, because we're going to be doing some outreach that's really exciting through social media, through inbound marketing, and we're going to be continuing to elevate, just like we are doing here at Winter Conference. We're going to continue to elevate how we are presenting our materials that matches what our meeting planners are looking for, and helping us to understand what are those different generational dynamics that we need to be ready for so we can be of better service. So we're going to be doing that. That the future is very bright for us. We have nothing but growth ahead.
Anna, thank you so much for taking the time on VOE. I know it is going to be an exciting year.
It's so good.
I know you're looking forward to it. And I appreciate your leadership and enthusiasm, and know that you're the right person to carry us into 2020 and beyond, because the world is changing and you can help us understand that change better. Thank you so much.
It's an honor.